Today we're going to go over how to install Nagios. Nagios is a network monitoring tool for determining whether servers are up, down. You can also monitor your network switches and get notifications when anything goes down, and it's completely customizable. So the first thing we need to do is actually install the operating system that this is going to be installed on. Today I'm going to be using a virtual machine that I've named MVC-Nagios-01, and I've already mounted the Centos 7 disk, so we're going to go ahead and begin the Centos 7 install. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is select the language. I'm going to select English, United States. So next we're going to want to set the time zone for this machine. I'm going to be America's Los Angeles. Set the date and set the time. You may want to turn network time on. You want to go to network host name and turn on the network adapter. If you have a dedicated IP, this is where you would configure it. Click on the configure button and go to IPv4 and configure it. Right now I'm going to skip this step. Set your host name. Go ahead and click done. Go back to date and time, turn on network time, click done. And for this we're going to be doing a minimal install, so you can leave software selection as minimal. And installation destination, we want to set this to our hard drive that we have. And then we can make any other changes you wish. Go ahead and click begin installation. Now you want to set your root password. And wait for it to install. Okay, once the install is completed, go ahead and reboot the machine and eject the Centos install disk. Now we can go ahead and log into the machine with the password you set during the install. And you want to run a yum upgrade. To make sure we're running the latest version. And we're going to go ahead and say yes. And yes again. Now we want to run an yum update. And we're now running the latest version. And I want to see the IP address that DHCP has given me because I'm going to SSH in. And I can see here it's 172.22.30.32. So I'm going to switch over to a SSH session so it's a little bit easier for me to work with. Okay, now that I'm SSH'd into the new server, we need to install the dependencies that Nagios is going to need to install. First thing we want to install is the web server and PHP. So we're going to run a yum install httpd and then space PHP. That's going to install the Apache web server and PHP from the repository. I'll go ahead and hit yes. Now we want to install the compiler tools. So we're going to go ahead and run yum install and install GCC, glibc, and glibc common. Go ahead and hit yes. We also want to install GD and GD-devel. So yum install GD, GD-devel. Go ahead and hit yes. By the way, you can just put all these dependencies in a single yum install command. We're also going to need to get wget. That way we can actually download Nagios from the repository. So yum install wget. Now we need to install Perl with yum install Perl and Perl devel. Go ahead and hit yes. And finally we need to install unzips with yum install unzip. Go ahead and hit yes. Okay, now with all the dependencies installed, we want to go ahead and create the Nagios user. And we're going to do this by running the user add command. -m and Nagios is the user we want to create. I want to set the password on that user. Run passwd and then Nagios and enter a password. Now we want to make the Nagios command group. So to do that, we're going to run the group add command and nagcmd. And we want to add the Nagios user and the Apache user to that group with user mod -a -G and then the group and then the user. I want to do that for both users. Now we're going to go ahead and download the latest Nagios install. So we're going to first make a directory for download so we can keep this stuff organized. We're going to change directories into the downloads directory. And we want to wget the Nagios tar.gz. At this time, this is the latest one that's available. When you watch this, there may be a later one. Just find out what it is. So wget and then the path to the tar file. We also want to download the latest Nagios plugins tar file. At this time, this is the path to the latest plugin. I will put a link to where you can find the newest plugins. Go ahead and download that with wget and the path to the file. Okay, now we're going to extract and install Nagios. So we want to extract Nagios as tar file with tar xzf and then the Nagios tar file that we downloaded. And we should be able to change directories into the Nagios. Directory we just extracted, and we want to run configure with the new group we created. So /configure -- with command group equals nagcmd. And we'll just check all this information, maybe make a note of this. It's going to let you know where everything's going to be installed. Now we're going to run make all. Okay, now that make all has completed, we will run make install to install Nagios. Now we want to run make install -init and make install -config and make install -command mode. Now we want to edit the contacts.config file in user local Nagios etc objects contacts config. Go ahead and vi that file and change the email address in that file to your email address or the contact email address that you want it to send notifications to. Go ahead and save the file. And now we want to run make install -webconf and we want to create the Nagios admin user for logging into Nagios. So we're going to run the following command: ht passwd space -c in the /user/local/nagios/htpasswd.users and then Nagios admin. And it asks for a password. Set this password. This is going to be the password you use to log into the web interface. And go ahead and restart the web service. You can run either service httpd restart or systemctl restart httpd.service. And because this is going to be running inside my network, I'm actually going to be disabling the firewall. So I'm going to run system control mask firewall D and system control stop firewall D. You can also just open up the ports as you need them, and you can look up those commands with a simple Google search. Okay, Nagios is now installed. Now we need to install the plugins. So we're going to back out of the Nagios directory and back into downloads. As you can see, I'm in root downloads. And now we want to extract the Nagios plugins tar. And it's going to be tar xzf and then the Nagios plugins tar. And we're going to cd into that directory we just extracted. And we want to configure the plugins with /configure -- with Nagios user Nagios with Nagios group equals Nagios. Wait for it to configure. go ahead and, as long as there's no errors, go ahead and run make. And make install to install the plugins. Okay, now we want to set Nagios to start when the system is booted. So we're going to run check config, add Nagios, and turn it on. So check config Nagios on. We also want to make sure that Apache starts on boot. So check config, add httpd, and go ahead and check config httpd on to turn it on. Now we need to disable SE Linux, or else some parts of Nagios may not work correctly. So to do that, we need to vi etc SE Linux and the config file, and go down to SE Linux equals enforcing and change that to disabled. Save the file and reboot the system. Wait for the system to come back up. Once it's back up, we want to check that the Nagios config is configured right. To do that, we're going to run /user /local /nagios /bin /nagios, and then the -v for verify, and then /user /local /nagios /etc against the Nagios config file. Go ahead and run that and make sure there's no errors, and down here you'll see 0 total warnings and 0 total errors. Everything looks okay. So now we can open up a web browser, and in the web browser go ahead and navigate to the IP address of your server, then /Nagios. You'll be prompted with a username and password box, and the username is Nagios admin, and the password is the password you set when you created that user. And you now have a working install of Nagios up and running. And you can see the only thing currently right now that it is monitoring is itself. And the only reason you're getting HTTP warning on itself is there's not actually an index.html page in the root of the Apache install. To clear that, go back to your server and change directories to var www html, and just touch index.html. That will create a blank file. and go ahead and restart Apache. Okay, once Apache is restarted, you can come back here and you can see now HTTPD is okay because it has an index page that it can reference. You have now successfully installed Nagios, and that's it for this lesson.